Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
And welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you're here. If you've been following me and listening to me for years and years, like so many of you have, welcome to the new platform. If you're here for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. This is a podcast that was created in my mind to bring the best minds in the natural products industry to you. You're getting the best information, the most up-to-date information, and I'm going to take a little sidestep. I'm going to be bringing you some incredible professional athletes and entertainers, all with the idea of learning what other people do out there to stay healthy, to get healthy, to be healthy, all these wonderful things that they do. We want to learn from the best of the best. Today, I think you're going to be very, very pleased with my guest. Bruno has been in my life for a very, very, very long time. Our paths crossed, I don't want to tell you how many decades ago, but I'm going to give you a background, and we're going to get at it and talk about some really amazing things today. Bruno is Professor Emeritus of Nutraceutical Science with Huntington University of Health Sciences. Currently, he serves as Chief Scientific Officer of Nutraland, USA. With graduate degrees in nutrition and herbal medicine and a 45-year veteran of the dietary supplement industry, as well as an award-winning formulator, he has developed natural products for dozens of dietary supplement companies, educated and trained natural product retailers and healthcare professionals, and written hundreds of articles on nutrition, herbal medicine, nutraceuticals, and integrative health issues for trade, consumer, and peer-reviewed publications, as well as authoring books and textbook chapters. Also hosts two podcast series, the Bioactive Nexus podcast and the Vitamin Professor podcast, exploring nutraceutical-related topic and other issues relevant to the dietary supplement industry. Help me welcome my great friend. Hey, Gene.
Jeff, it is awesome to be with you once again. I think that many years ago, I think I was a guest on your radio show, but it's so long ago, I really can't remember.
It was probably so far back that the breaks were a time when they used to drop a needle on a record.
Well, let me say it was so far back that all of this used to be brown, just saying.
Well, all of this used to have hair. So I'm with you. It was a long time ago. How are you, my friend?
I am awesome. And just I'm really digging being on your podcast. And just the other day when we talked, it was like no time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've seen you over the years at trade shows and things, but there's a certain kind of discussion you can have with somebody who's been in the industry for as long as you have, that you just understand certain things. And so it was great to talk to you. So I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I am too. And I think we can talk about some interesting things today. You know, we have seen the beginnings of this industry, and we have been on the train all the way through to present day where we are today. I remember, and I'm sure you do, at the very beginning, I mean, we had to go to the library for information. There were very, very few authors that we were respected to be able to utilize, to today where there's so much information. Now you have to decide whether the information is any good, and then you have to research the research. It's terrible. It's crazy.
That's exactly the issue. Back then, you'd go to a biomedical library. I used to go to UCI biomedical library, pull copies of studies, and it took a long, long time. Nowadays, zip, PubMed, you got what you need. But like you say, there's other sources of information you look for. And as we know, there's a great deal of marketing science as opposed to real science. And that is the crux, knowing what to look for. People like you and I can look at data and assess it fairly quickly and go, okay, this is crap or this is real. And it's got to be such a struggle. And I know that it is for people I've talked to, whether it's retailers, whether it's consumers, whoever it is, that maybe doesn't have the same kind of science background we have and be able to do that assessment. And it just sounds real. They're getting their information oftentimes from influencers and on TikTok or Facebook or wherever, as opposed to people with an actual science background that can advise them appropriately. And that's one of the problems that we're dealing with today.
I think one of the things that just kind of, I don't know whether it frustrates me or it just alerts me to the state of affairs that we're in today is that we are in a time when people have so much more information at their fingertips. We know more than what we used to know. We know all the downfalls. We know all of our habits and our cruxes. We know all of these things, yet we still haven't come on board completely with the things we should be focusing on. But the problem with it is we have developed in this industry and as we've grown and offered more possibilities, impatience has become something that drives people to make rash decisions and look for the magic wand. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm all for the magic wand if there is one. If there was a franchise, I'd open a magic wand store, because everybody would like a quick fix if they could possibly get it. But the thing is, you have to do the work and you have to have the time and you need to have patience. And it's very difficult for people to do that in a very fast-paced world where they're used to everything being quick. So I think when they sign on to their social media or they read their blogs or they're chatting back and forth, or their favorite person that's out there that is wonderful in Hollywood and maybe great on the big screen decides to throw information, people have a tendency to jump on it very quickly without reservation and without question. And I love that they're making things available, but are they really doing their homework? And sometimes I think no.
It's an excellent point. It's whether it's celebrities, whether it's influencers, or whether it's just a company that promotes their product in a way that is less than ethical. I'd like to give an example, not naming a brand,
Okay.
but so one of the things that kept irritating me, I'm an old guy, so I'm not on every single social media outlet, but I am on Facebook, and Facebook is for us old guys. And I use it for friends and family. I don't really use it for professional purposes. But I kept seeing the ad popped up for a certain mushroom coffee. And I know you've seen it too. And I was just really getting irritated because a lead line that would pop up was no more inflammation. No more inflammation. I mean, besides just the irresponsibility of such a claim, inflammation is a necessary process as part of an immune response. When it gets out of control and you have chronic inflammation, that's when it's problematic. But if that's what you're dealing with, there's probably reasons for that. Maybe you're on a medication that you need to be on. Maybe you have an autoimmune disorder. Maybe there's something going on, whatever. But to say, if you drink their mushroom coffee, you will have no more inflammation is incredibly irresponsible, and not just irresponsible, but untrue. Yeah. If you look at the 6 mushrooms in that product, 3 out of the 6 don't even have any documented anti-inflammatory properties. The other 3 have to be present in the form of extracts to be able to offer that anti-inflammatory activity, and they have to be present at a certain level. Well, there's no way they're present at that level. They're not even the extracts. At the total of 2,000 milligrams of everything combined, and it's not even close. It's just irresponsible, terrible, and then they keep doing the same thing, like no more gut issues, no more this, no more that. They don't care. They'll happily lie about what it is that they're about, and they are taking advantage of consumers' ignorance. And I don't mean the consumers are dumb. There's a difference between dumb and ignorant. Ignorant means you don't know something, okay? And they may not know this thing, but these guys don't care, all right? And Jeff, you've been in this a long time. You know, like I know, that all you need to do is spend a little extra time when formulating a product to put in the right doses of the right things, and you can make some good, responsible claims and help a lot of people. Or you can just put a bunch of crap together and make outrageous claims until such point where the FTC or the FDA or somebody stops you. But by that time, you've done millions and you don't care. You can close down and be happy.
To your point, I love that information is getting out there because all information can lead somebody possibly to the right place. But I also want it to be said that we want to make sure that we're working with companies that make a difference. It's been such an uphill struggle for the 4.5 decades I've been in this industry like you,
Mhm.
where we have people that are actually opening up their mind and their heart to trying things that are more natural,
Yeah,
things that have been used around the world traditionally, and now it's brand new
absolutely.
to them. And I think it's wonderful. But if you go into it looking for something that's just going to do it all very, very quickly, once again, impatience rears its head. And then anybody will try something one time. But if they don't see any results and they don't see any changes and they're not able to notice any of the things that they may have been promised, if you will, it not only keeps them from wanting to try it again, it sometimes turns them off to an entire industry of things that could be making a dramatic change in their life and making their life so much better. But they're like, you know what? They were right. This stuff doesn't work. But they didn't do their homework. They didn't ask any questions. They didn't take the time. People will, when they're buying a new phone, they've got 5,000 questions they want to ask, and they're reading all the reviews on everything. But if they see a supplement that Bob is using at the office and Bob says, well, I'm feeling good, and it may work for Bob. So they try it. It doesn't work for them. But they didn't ask Bob, who is this meant for? They just listen and go try something, and then they get turned off, get a bad taste in their mouth, if you will. And then we lose them. And it's so hard because if people do it right, they're going to become part of this and open up their mind and their heart to trying things that are more natural, things that are very common day in, say, India or China or parts of the world where they've been doing this for 100 to 1,000 years, getting great results. So it frustrates me when I think on our side, we don't take the time to ask questions and do our homework, as well as on the other side when they promise the world and there's no way it's going to happen.
Excellent points, every one. My mother, God bless her, she's 91. She takes enough supplements every day to choke a horse, eats organic food, does a very good things, and is in pretty good health. But, one of the things I keep trying to get her to do is don't just buy a supplement because you read something and said, oh, this is great. I'm going to add this to my regimen. She does that for her. She does that for my stepfather. My poor stepfather always begs me to go through their supplements and, kind of bring down the total number. And so I do that from time to time. I go over there. I go through all their stuff. Ma, why are you using this? Ma, why are you using this? Sometimes she remembers. Sometimes she doesn't. But I will see stuff. I will see products that they take that she's got sort of the right idea. It's like, she wanted to give my stepdad a Hawthorne product. He had some blood pressure issues, and it's a good choice. There's a lot of research on that. Okay, good. But it was just plain hawthorn berry powder, okay? Not the hawthorn berry extract, properly standardized, that actually follows what was done in the human clinical research. And it was the wrong stuff at the wrong dose, the wrong form in the wrong dose. And I would tell him, Mom, you are taking, hawthorn berry dust here. This isn't, or you're giving that to Dad. This isn't the right stuff. Here's the right stuff to you. And so I'll go through this all the time. Same thing happened the other day with her with curcumin, a crappy curcumin product, which, as you know, has bad bioavailability, which is why there's so many different forms for improving bioavailability. But she has somebody like me that can actually advise her. What do people do when they don't have somebody? You've got to find somebody who's knowledgeable, that you trust, or you got to educate yourself really well. And education isn't a function of you read a review. Okay. Education isn't a function of some influencer, whether a celebrity or otherwise, says, use this, it's great stuff. People really have to make an effort to educate themselves. And it needs to go hand in hand with our industry, maybe taking some moves to help stop the bad players from doing the bad stuff. I don't know what all that is, but I'd love to see a movement I call the honest supplement movement, where people are stopping the falsehoods. People are stopping that. Recently, one of the issues when DSHEA was formed, one of the things that came about on that was in labeling, the allowance in the regulations for proprietary blends. And it had a legit reason at the time. It was like, well, people want to protect their intellectual property. So if they got a magic sauce, they got a combination of these nutraceuticals, they don't want everybody to know exactly what it is in their competitors, but they have data to support that. you could put it in a proprietary blend. And if you had like 200 milligrams of each thing, and that was the correct dose, you could make the proprietary blend 600 milligrams and go to town.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that today, that's not how it's ended up.
No.
And for most companies, proprietary blend, and I say most companies, I would say conservatively 95%, has ended up that proprietary blends have become a reason for them to just put in a bunch of stuff at doses that have no meaning to fool the consumer or the retailer into thinking it's something special. Oh, look at all the stuff. Look at that 10 or 15 different ingredients in this proprietary blend, and it's 500 milligrams. Well, none of which could possibly be present at a clinically relevant dose. And, Hank Schultz from Informa, yesterday I was literally on the phone. He was doing a brief interview with me because he and another guy is writing an article that is probably posted sometime today, and on proprietary blends. And he asked me my opinion. And I said, in the immortal words of W.C. Fields, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, you baffle them with bullshit. And unfortunately, that has become, for many, what proprietary blends are. Now, that's not everyone. There's some companies who have legitimate proprietary blends where they've got the right amounts, and there's some raw materials suppliers that have put together some blends where they've actually conducted human clinical studies on them and are able to demonstrate that this blend of X number of ingredients have a certain effect. Okay, those are legit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those are far and few between. People
True.
are just not doing that. It's just another example of how people within the industry, bad players, are trying to pull the wool over consumers' eyes, mislead them when you don't have to. But you do have to have somebody who has a science background, understands this stuff to formulate your products. And if you don't have somebody on staff, go outside your company. Find somebody that can do it. People like us, find people who know how to do this stuff and can formulate good products for you. And stop trying to fool people. It just happens all the time. Do you know, I was dealing with a client who was asking me to formulate a magnesium product for him. And he wanted to use magnesium threonate. Now, magnesium threonate, Magtein, has good research. And it had research on it for cognitive function. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to use 2,000 milligrams of magnesium threonate, which yields something about maybe 178 milligrams of elemental magnesium, mm-hmm. in order to have the effect. And there's a number of products on the market that do that. And suddenly, then you see, oh, look, liposomal magnesium threonate. Well, that's interesting. And then you look at the supplement facts box, and it says 2,000 milligrams of magnesium threonate yielding 178 milligrams of elemental magnesium. Wait a minute. If it's liposomal, by virtue of the microencapsulation process, you're not going to have the same elemental potency. It's going to be reduced. Mm-hmm. So they're lying. And some of them don't even put in the supplement facts box liposomal stuff. Some of them will have another thing that says, another line that says lecithin or whatever. But it's fake liposome, or it doesn't even exist. They just call it liposome. I mean, they just outright lie. And I have not yet seen any product on the market, anyone, that is a legit liposomal magnesium threonate. Everyone that I've looked at, and granted, I've limited my search to Amazon, but everyone on there, it's a lie. And
just going to jump in real quick to your point. I've been really blessed to work with, oh my God, the best minds in the industry, help to launch hundreds of amazing companies. And there are great companies that do it really well. Yeah. I mean, they take the time, they've got the concern, they've got the passion, they're in it for the right reason. You ask them why they do what they do, and they're just like, I love it. I've never worked a day in my life because I love what I do. There are those out there. But even when CBD came out, and there, I was at the launch at the Expo, and all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, there were like 3,000 companies out there, and there were a lot of bad actors. There were a lot of people making them in their kitchens, their bathrooms, their garages, their basements. And, there was a lot of people out there who were trying to, number one, afford it. And number two, see the results that everyone was talking about. And it left a, once again, very bad taste in people's mouths because of the fact that they weren't getting the benefit, but they were using things that people didn't even know what they were using. So
2019 Expo, Natural Products Expo West 2019 was the CBD show. You remember that, right? You walk around, tons of booths of CBD products. And I formulated, for a company I was working for, I formulated 4 products with CBD. They were expensive because I was using the real deal. I was using an actual hemp extract standardized for its CBD content, and it was not cheap, okay? But they were excellent products. What people would do in that case is they would take and they would call it hemp CBD complex. And they would say 500 milligrams. And people go, oh my God, 500 milligrams, that's fantastic. 500 milligrams of what? Hemp. If you're lucky, you get 1 milligram of CBD, maybe, because it's not actually standardized. It's not the real deal. People would falsify, or if not outright falsify, completely misrepresent what you were getting. You look at the panel, hemp CBD complex, and they give you numbers. And it's like, if you had 100 milligrams or even 50 milligrams of CBD in there, that product would be would be extremely, probably about $200 retail. I mean, it was crazy. And that they, to your point, people didn't know what they were taking. They thought they were getting the real deal, and they weren't. It was just all, one lie after another. And for people like you and I who love this industry, who love being able to help people, who love being able to come out with products that make a difference in people's life, I absolutely despise those bad players who just want to fake people out, make them buy something that won't do anything for them, and seemingly have no conscience about it.
I think if there was any good point to the pandemic, and that's, of course, that's looking really deep to find anything good about that time, is that it did bring a lot of people back to health food stores, to vitamin supplementation stores, to bring people in because they were looking for attention, looking for a way to have a conversation, because otherwise they were like just getting something somewhere. And I have personally, as I travel around the country, seen and talked to so many retailers, is that we have so many people that come in now and want to have these conversations. And I love it because these are also stores that are very based on their nutrition. They're very based on having conversations to give people, the best choices, listening. My grandmother used to say, 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you talk. But it's the same thing. They're listening and having these one-on-one conversations. They're not talking about everybody in the room. They're having a conversation and making it very specialized to that one person. I love that about the industry. But it doesn't happen everywhere, but it is still happening out there. So I tell you, if you are just now in search of having a place to go, research, find one of these wonderful health food stores, these wonderful, supplement stores where you have people that have been in the industry for a long time that love what they do.
It makes me think back, Jeff, to the days that we spent in retail.
Oh my.
And the franchise system and all the training and education that we provided to
ongoing
constant. Yeah. It was one of the happiest times in my life. I got to spend most of my time doing training and education and doing that. But really, and these were good people who really wanted to help people, and they would spend their time learning, and when somebody would come in, they would advise them on products that could legitimately do something good for them. Yeah. And as a result, people kept coming back to their stores, recommend other people. Oh, you got to talk to Sue, or you got to talk to this person because they know and they'll help you. And today you can go online and order all kinds of stuff, almost anything. But, is it good? Is it not? If you don't have an expert to help advise you, to your point, you got to find one.
I was at a store a couple of months ago, and I was on the East Coast, and I was doing a wonderful, great lecture. Everything went really, really good. And I stopped in another store, and I was listening to the guy talk, and I thought to myself, this guy has to be like cut from the same cloth as we were. And, you know, and he just spent his time. He spent like 45 minutes with this customer, took care of all the, and clarified everything, took care and resolved problems. I thought to myself, it was just refreshing to see that there's people out there that still love what they really, really do. And I'm seeing a new kind of generation of people. I'm
Yeah.
seeing younger people in stores, and they're coming in and they're just like a sponge. They're like, I want to learn about this. And I see them and I watch their faces when we're doing trainings. And I think to myself, that's refreshing as well, because, you know, let's just face it, you know, we're going to be 39 again this year, and we need some young blood out there that that has the passion, and I'm seeing it. So there are some really refreshing things. But on the other point, where we have changed in this industry the most is that the state of affairs of health in our country has changed so dramatically to the negative. I remember when you and I were working when we were young in the field, to talk to someone about their bones and calcium and stuff, we were usually talking to people well in their 60s. That's kind of when you started talking.
Oh dear,
You,
not that old.
yeah. And today, I mean, it's not uncommon to talk to somebody in their 20s and 30s. We didn't
Right.
have the type 2 diabetes in the younger years. We didn't have osteoarthritis and osteoporosis and bone density problems and mental clarity, weakened immune. This stuff was mostly in the geriatric kind of category. But that wall came down. There's no wall anymore. We are now dealing with health problems in all age brackets. You know, so it is a different world. My point being, we know so much more, but we apply so much less.
It's true. An interesting point about the younger generation that sort of pleasantly surprised me is, I don't know if you've observed this or you feel the same way, but you know, when I look at baby boomers, such as myself and our age group,
Us.
you see, you know, a lot of times people will just, you know, buy something, um, and maybe didn't question it too much. They just said, "Oh, okay, that's what I'll do." I found that some of the younger generations seem to want a little more evidence. I've come across that they're looking for more information. That whether, you know, they're online, they're researching it more. They're spending more time trying to see if something is legit. Not all of them, but more of them than I think were necessarily in our generation. And I'm encouraged by that. If my observation is correct, I'm encouraged by that, because
I'm
we
with you.
need
I'm
that.
seeing it too. So I agree with that 100%. And that's very, very, I don't know, it's a little positive reinforcement for me mentally, knowing that, you know, we're handing this off to maybe a group of people that will, you know, eventually kind of step in and follow some of these training and educational kind of protocols to keep people in the know.
From your mouth to God's ears. That's what I say. That's what we need. Like I say, I'm encouraged. It's a positive thing, but I just I don't know, Jeff, what it's going to take. I don't know if our industry can ever start a movement to try to impact the bad players. I know that in the past, I have been with one company in particular that shall remain nameless, that somebody was just doing something that was really reprehensible in what they were selling. And I was like, we should report them to the FTC, because it was an advertising issue. And I was told by the president, no, don't do that. I'm like, why not? And he said, well, because if you do that, that puts does two things. One, it makes the industry as a whole look bad, because it comes into the news that somebody's saying that. And the other part is that then it makes us a target. Maybe they're going to want to come after us. I'm like, yeah, but we're not doing anything wrong, you know? And so I guess that fear factor sometimes stops people from taking an action. And I'm not one to want to like report everybody, but when somebody does something really horrible and I think that they're potentially hurting people, I feel like that needs to happen. But I think, if nothing else, as an industry, even if we're not reporting somebody to FDA or FTC, as an industry, I'd love to see us take more measures, whether it's working with the trade organizations, take more measures to call some of these people out, to challenge them, to you know, challenge them online, you know, and say, hey, these people are making claims they can't substantiate. You know, they're putting stuff in here that's questionable. I don't know. I feel like we need an honest supplement movement.
Well, when I first started this industry, I always found it interesting. I was kind of doing it part-time when I was in college, and just because you work in a part-time job in college, you got bills. And I kind of fell in love with it, and then, progressed into it from that point forward when I moved to the coast. And, I never really thought that you could have so much passion about something, but I mean, we do. And I'm glad for it, because it really does allow us to make sure that we are, doing the right thing, heading in the right direction, and continuing to be on top of changes that are out there. And as as you talk to people around the world, as I do, you see movements that are going on in many other countries. And, some of these countries have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years. And, they're still researching and still doing things and tweaking and making things, a little bit more applicable and absorbable and digestible and bioavailable. And, because it's an ever going process. Every time over the years I've gotten cocky and thought I knew it all, I got a really strong realization that I didn't. And every time I thought that I'd really had it all locked up, I found out that I didn't. So finally, about 15, 20 years ago, I just realized, I'm like, Jeff, you're never going to know it all. Just keep updating, refiling, researching, and focusing, and just keep updating everything you thought you knew to the new research and information that you now know. So I don't know about you, but I mean, it's constantly
Oh yeah,
uploading and deleting and downloading in your head.
it's a constant nonstop effort, and I'm glad for that, and I'm grateful for that. I'm always taking time to learn something new, pretty much because I have to. I mean,
Right.
I'm chief scientific officer of a company that I've got to stay on top of it constantly, and I'm doing speaking engagements, I'm writing articles, I'm doing all this stuff, so I have to stay on top of it. And as much time as I spend, and it's a lot of time trying to stay on top of it, I'll come up with, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Oh, look at that new study. Holy crap! This turns the whole thing on its side. It's a whole new paradigm. I'm always finding that, and an interesting phenomenon has taken place. Like you, when I was younger than I am now, I would sort of feel a little embarrassed if I didn't know something. Now I get excited. Oh, I'm learning something new. This is awesome. I didn't know that.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have any of the, oh my goodness, I knew that, but I forgot it moments?
Oh, sure.
I have those.
It happens. It's not unusual that's not unusual. I mean, look, I've been in the industry 45 years. I think you've been in it about the same, thereabouts. And look, we're not going to remember everything that we knew,
True.
But what we often do remember is, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. That sounds very familiar. On a related but unrelated note, some years ago, back in the early 2000s, I was teaching a class on herbal medicine at the university, and it's an online course. And somebody turned in an assignment, and I'm reading it, and I'm going, "Wow, this is great! This is great!" And I'm reading it, and I'm going, "Why does this sound familiar?"
Oh no!
And I go and I just take about a paragraph, copy it, paste it into Google. It comes up. It's an article I wrote. It was an article I wrote some years before. Totally forgot that I had written the article. Of course, then I had to go after the student for plagiarism, and it was like, really? You're going to plagiarize? Did you even look to see who the author of the article was when you plagiarized?
I mean, you're kind of torn. You're like, number one, this is really, really good. Number two, he liked it enough to use it, but so it's really good for the ego temporarily. So
yeah, very temporarily. But yeah, there's things that many times that I've gone through that I've forgotten, and most of the time. So here's the difference between also the memory, and I take memory supplements to try to keep myself as sharp as possible.
Me too.
Here's the difference between my memory now and my memory at one time. So I remember that you remember when, like, it was like 1981 or somewhere around there when Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw's book Life Extension came out.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I read that thing backwards and forwards.
Me too.
And I remember and that was just at the beginning of, hey, you could take arginine and ornithine and stuff like that to help with growth hormone. And if somebody was asking me a question, I'm like, well, okay, it was the third chapter, I believe. I think it was about 2 pages in, near the top of the page. There was a section that discussed the mechanism, blah, blah, blah. I could actually do that. Now, it wasn't eidetic memory. It was just I read it so much I remembered. Now it's like, I think maybe it was in Life Extension. Yeah, I think. But at least I got an idea of where to go and look. But it's just not quite that same sharpness, the old neurons aren't quite as, the dendrites aren't quite as sharp as they were.
Well, I had someone the other day, and it's happened in the past where I was talking to a group, and they were people that were pretty successful in their careers. And the topic came up about health food stores and working in a health food store and vitamin supplement store. And the one guy just out of the blue said, we have to remember all these big numbers and formulas and calculations and all that kind of stuff. He goes, I mean, how hard is it to remember some vitamins? And I looked at him and I said, really, dude? I said, have you been to a health food store, supplement store? There are thousands of formulations on the floor. Not only do you need to at least have a good understanding of all the ingredients that are in the supplements, but you also have to know how they work well in combination, and then be able to disseminate the information, understand the labels, understand the legalities, understand what works with what doesn't work with what benefits are easy, which ones are not. And I said, you have no idea what you have to know to work in a health food store and a supplement store. I said, I will put what we have to know and what a person in those up against what you have to know anytime and win that conversation. And he got very quiet, and everybody in the room was just like, you never thought of it that way. And I'm just like, and then every time we think we know it, a whole bunch of new ingredients come out and a whole bunch of new blends and combinations and new delivery systems.
That's right.
Said, so you need to think before you make that comment, because it was stupid and it was unfounded.
So in your discussion right there, one of the things you said resonated, well, several things resonated with me, but one thing that popped into my head was when you said you also have to know what doesn't work together. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I think it was around 2008, 2009, something like that. Do you remember there was a time when strontium as a mineral element became popular, and it was being used for bone health?
That's right.
And so I remember being at Expo and a guy walking up to me with a look on his face like, I got you. I'm gonna get you with this one.
Oh, I've seen that face before.
And he's like, so how come your calcium formula doesn't have strontium in it? It's got all these other things for bone, but it doesn't have strontium. How come it doesn't have strontium? And I said, really good question. I said, because strontium and calcium compete with each other for absorption in the intestinal tract. If you were going to take both of them, and I'm personally not sold that strontium is the way to go, but if you're going to take both of them, you need to take them at separate times, because otherwise they compete, and you're either not going to absorb enough of one or enough of another. So it's because we're smart and we know that we don't combine it. And the look on his face completely fell. And so it's just like, but how many companies I saw that did combine it? Because they didn't do their research. They didn't know. Oh, that's not a good idea to combine together. That's going to cause a problem. Or how many times do you see probiotics? You have to be so careful with probiotics. Don't often play well with other nutraceuticals, particularly ones that have a slightly higher moisture content. So you have to have really hardy strains, or you have to have ones that are microencapsulated, or that is a spore forming one where they've got their own encasement and something to protect them. Because if you just use, like, say, standard Lactobacillus acidophilus and you mix it with a bunch of other stuff, by the time the person takes it, it's dead. And so you have to know, which ones are okay to mix with what, that are going to have stability after you do it. And it's how you can tell a good formulator from a poor formulator or the company, if they have a good formulator or pure bad one, is you look at the label and you say, oh, look at this. This is really badly formulated. Or look at this. This is really well formulated. And so that's something that happens. So to your point, you have to know, not just as a formulator, but you got to know if you're working in a store, if you're an expert at some level, what makes sense together and what doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
So it is a challenge.
It's fun. I mean, I enjoy being able to do this and have these conversations. And to me, there's nothing better than people that have reached out and tried and enjoyed and saw results where they may have been told there was nothing they could do unless it was a pharmaceutical line of support. And don't get me wrong, pharmaceutical drugs have their place. I have people that I know that are alive because of them.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, I went through a crazy time last year. I almost wasn't here. Thank God for the pharmaceuticals, saved my life. But I also realized that you have to do something on your own, including, your mindset, your body, your activity, your sleep, your rest, your stress balancing, decompressing, diet. You have to put in and fill the cracks and the crevices that are created by today's just living, so, and I'm glad that we're learning it and passing it on, and allowing people to learn.
And absolutely. And I'll take it just a step further and say that sometimes the integrative combination of nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals can make a big difference. You know who's
Absolutely.
good at that? You go to China, traditional Chinese medical doctors will often combine the two together. We have somebody that we both know, Art Presser.
Mm-hmm. And he was on the tip of my tongue when you started saying that, so I knew you were going there.
So Art, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Pharmacy, wrote a book on herbal medicine, used to own vitamin stores, very knowledgeable guy when it comes to nutraceuticals. Number of years back, Art, he drew a bad card in the deck, and the card he drew was he developed mantle cell type lymphoma, which is a bad form of cancer that there was no data on survival past 3 years because nobody who had it survived past 3 years. Okay. Yeah. So Art combined conventional medicine with certain types of chemo together, and he literally went to China. He saw a Chinese traditional medicine doctor there. He got who have done a lot of great work in combining chemo together with herbs, traditional Chinese herbs, that actually improved the effectiveness of the chemo while reducing the side effects of the chemo and having their own benefits. So Art did that, plus combined it with other nutraceuticals. And do you know that he is alive today, decades later?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have cancer. He's a survivor, but he took that integrative approach. Sometimes it's not a either or. Sometimes it's a both approach, depending on the situation. Some situations just require pharmaceuticals. Some just require nutraceuticals. Some can use both. And in all cases, a good diet, a stress reduction, the right kind of exercise, all of that comes into play, of course. So, but yeah. When I started in this industry, I don't know about you, Jeff, but when I started, I was really on one extreme end of it. Meaning, I often describe people in our business and consumers that use supplements on a sliding scale. On one side, you have the fruit and nuts, meaning all natural, fruit nut side, all the way up to the pure science side of things. Okay, and most people are somewhere on a sliding scale. I used to be on the fruit nut side. And it's like, if it's natural, it's good for you, whatever. And now I'm a lot more over here. But I recognize the value in traditional medicine. And I don't mean conventional medicine. I mean traditional medicine, herbs and diet and all of that. I recognize all of that. But it's funny how over the years that changed. The more education I got, the more science I got in my background, the more I appreciated that scientific method and how important it is to apply good science to supplements. It legitimizes it. It lets people know that there's something real here, that it's not just, marketing science, that there's real science there. So,
well, I want to thank you. This has been wonderful. I hope you'll come back and see me again, and come on the show again. We'll definitely stay in touch. It's it's a great industry, and I know we both love what we do and love what we get to do. Um, before I let you go, would you leave everyone with a thought for the day? Something that's important to you that you want people to remember the conversation. It doesn't have to do about anything we talked about today, just your thought for the day.
Sure. Every day, are you doing something that not only makes you happy, but that does something to help people? If you are, good for you. If you're not, think about what you can do that'll make you happy and that'll help people.
I love that. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Of course, my wonderful friend and guest, Jean Bruno, with us today. And thank you for taking the time to enjoy this new platform with me. Make sure to tell
My
your friends.
pleasure.
Make sure to tell all of your friends. And when you go, you can listen at Spotify. Of course, you'll be able to continue seeing all of the interviews on my YouTube channel. Same name, Honest Health. Make sure that you are telling and bringing everyone along. When you show up there, this is kind of new to me, being in radio for 42 years. So if there's something you're supposed to click, if you're supposed to like it, if you're supposed to pass it on, if you're supposed to do something, click them all, because I want to have you guys around. And remember, we're always going to be better for great information and for, being enlightened and maybe reminded that we do have a choice. So it's really important. Jean, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.